A lot of people call me a historian, but I'm a lover of history. You know what I had for lunch? Fried green tomatoes. Have you ever had fried green tomatoes?
Hi, we're the Care Kids.
Our parents are crazy. They want to take us on a year-long trip.
They call it an empathy expedition.
We're traveling the states to discover what makes us united.
50 states in 52 weeks.
And I saw you, 'cause I wanna be like the wind. I wanna run with you. Oh, we can be wolves, howling at the great white moon. I wanna be by your side when we light up the sky for the world to see. Run, 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 run with me.
This is the process that I follow. I never let anyone just come in and start walking. Well, thank you for coming. We're going to follow the North Star today. How's that? The Underground Railroad movement. It was secret, and there's still people trying to learn about it. There are thousands of books to be written about it, but we tell it in an elementary way so people are receptive. And if you are receptive, you'll get something out of this trip. We are so happy to have you. You make me proud. You make me feel like I'm doing the right thing, but I'm gonna challenge you. You gotta have at least 20 questions before you leave. There's over 8,000 items in this building. We have a gallery upstairs and a gallery downstairs and this gallery. And I am just so pleased to have young, educated teenagers and before teenagers come and visit me. You're in a very historical area. I would guarantee you that here in this area, it's just as comparable as any place that you visited, whether it be Charleston, South Carolina, Biloxi, Mississippi, or crossing into Lake Erie. We have historical sites because we're right on the Ohio River. And Harriet Tubman used to call it River Jordan. Any river you cross is River Jordan. Have you ever heard the song, Follow the Drinking Gourd? Well, Follow the Drinking Gourd was a code song for people to sing when they were being helped to escape bondage. Follow the drinking gourd, for the old man's a-waiting to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd. We're talking about the North Star. See those two dippers up there? The North Star, you're always going north. So it wasn't very complicated. You know, people were walking to freedom. So if it was a cloudy night and you couldn't see the North Star, just feel the back of the tree and you're always going north. Our first president had slaves, and they took body servants to Philadelphia, and two of those slaves disappeared. One by the name of Nina Judge and Old Tom, who was a body servant for George Washington. They ran off. They didn't call it the Underground Railroad. So for the last 400 years, people have wanted to be free. And that's the term they use, whether they came from Africa, whether they came from Haiti, or Santo Domingo, or the Caribbean, they just wanted to be free. So the Underground Railroad was a lot of people, and sometimes Quakers get more credit than they are due, but Presbyterians and Methodists, they also helped. And you can't leave out the slaves themselves, who were people of color. And they would use people's homes, their churches, businesses, and barns, and crevices in the ground to hide. Friend of a friend. Because they never knew when someone was going to take advantage of them. And they used secret codes that were communicated by song, just like Follow the Drinking Gourd. And it lasted for 359 years, slavery. Many people helped on the Underground Railroad, but it was very secret. So there's not a lot of information unless you can read someone's journal or a captain on a ship that came from Africa, because you see they left places like England, Liverpool and Bristol, and they ended up picking up people in Africa, then they ended up in America, and Santo Domingo, and Haiti. And then we have what's called the 13 colonies. Do you know the first 3 words in the Constitution?
We the people.
Remember that here. See, because we are a government of people, and we are the government. And so when we separated on what we call the Declaration of Independence, we wanted to be free people. And lo and behold, we did some of the same things that they were doing to people. But you see, it was legal to own other people. But there were many people who did not agree with that. And they put their life on the line. People gave up their lives for the Revolutionary War. I'll even go back farther than that. You know, if you ever heard about people who were Native Americans, they were here first. And so they helped a lot by letting slaves come to their villages. And so you'll have a lot of people of color that have a lot of Native American blood. First person that escaped, the owner said that boy must have gone underground. It didn't have anything to do with Underground Railroad. But when the train started running, they started using terminologies that would get people to understand code words like conductor and package and load of potatoes and things like that. But I had a great-great-grandmother who was a slave on the plantation in North Carolina. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt created a program for people who were unemployed called the WPA. Those people went out and interviewed people like you're interviewing me now. My life is a blessed life. I have no idea who my biological father was. I was born in Raleigh, North Carolina. You ever heard of Carolina? It's part of where Geechee people come from, Gula. They speak a dialect of African American and European dialect, and they created their own language where no one else can find out what they're talking about. And so, not having any idea and not really being interested in education, because I had never been to school in the year of 1943. Now, if you do your math, I was born in 1935, and my mother was a very sick lady. She had me between the ages of 13 and 7 years old. Her name was Katie Alston. That's A-L-S-T-O-N. You'll find an Alston plantation in Randolph County in Raleigh area, North Carolina. Some of the names of the children on the plantation are the same names as my mother's sisters: Sadie, Katie, Tishy Boy, Cleo. And so now that I've done my research, I know exactly from whence I came. And I'm very proud, even though not knowing who my biological father was and not having a chance to get an education, I'm blessed because someone loved me. My 2 cousins, Susie and Henry Mattox, came to visit the new arrivals and saw that I wasn't being treated like the other 2 biological grandsons. And asked my new father, William Smith, if I could come and stay with them in Newark, New Jersey. Well, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I'd never been to school, never been to the dentist. This was in 1943. So to Newark, New Jersey I go. I get a chance to go to South 8th Street Elementary School, Robert Treat Junior High School for a year, and even got elected the president of the 9th grade class, not because I was smart, but I wore a sharp vest made out of leopard skin. Because, you know, I really wasn't interested in education. All I wanted to do was pull pigtails and throw spitball. But I found out that education was the key, as long as they don't change the locks. We have been here in this building since 1993. We started across the street in 1986. When I say we, I do nothing without recognizing my wonderful wife who has passed on. But I met her in New York City while I was training racehorses. and a barn foreman. And that was back in 1962. Now, you wonder how a guy like myself arrived here after coming out of metropolitan New York. That girl will make you go anywhere. Remember what I tell you this moment. If you know anybody who wants to leave this country, you tell them I'll be here when they get back. That's how great this country is. Remember that. And so when you think about we the people, you have a right to vote. And that's what all of these people died for you to vote. So don't ever say you don't have time. Here's your recipe. You take 2 eggs, you beat them up, and you take the green tomatoes and you slice them, and you take some real good flour, something maybe that they make pancakes out of them. You don't use just regular flour. And you dip them in the flour, and you dip them in the eggs, and you dip them one more time, and you make sure the grease is about 350 degrees, and you drop them in that pan. Succulent goodness.